0200 hours, Strait of Hormuz. Commander Alicia Reyes has the deck. 33 kilometers of water separate Iran from Oman at the narrowest point of this strait, and roughly a fifth of the world's oil moves through that gap every single day. Reyes has stood this watch 100 times. Tonight is not going to be one of the easy ones. Her ship, a guided missile destroyer, part of a small escort group shepherding a convoy of tankers through the strait, is running dark, radar sweeping, everything normal. Then the operations specialist at the surface search console says 4 words that change the next 4 minutes of her life. Multiple contacts, closing fast. 13 small boats, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy fast attack craft, and they are not slowing down. Reyes has seconds to decide something her training never fully prepares anyone for. Is this harassment, the kind her ship has weathered a dozen times before, or is this the night it's finally real? To understand why 13 small boats can put a warship's entire crew on edge, you have to understand what they represent, and why the ordinary rules of naval warfare don't quite apply here. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, the IRGCN, is not Iran's conventional navy. It's a separate, ideologically driven force, and its entire doctrine in the Persian Gulf is built around one idea: asymmetry. Iran cannot match the United States Navy ship for ship, missile for missile, in a conventional fight. So it doesn't try to. Instead, it fields hundreds of small, cheap, fast boats, fiberglass hulls, outboard engines, capable of speeds over 40 knots, armed with machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades, and in some cases, short-range anti-ship missiles. Individually, none of them can sink a destroyer. Collectively, in a swarm, moving from multiple directions at once, they can overwhelm a ship's ability to track, prioritize, and respond to every threat simultaneously. This is called swarm tactics, and it is not theoretical. It has played out in real incidents for more than 2 decades in exactly these waters. In 2021, 13 IRGCN fast boats closed to within 150 yards of a group of American vessels escorting a submarine through the strait, prompting a Coast Guard cutter to fire 2 rounds of warning shots before the boats broke off. In 2022, a single Iranian craft approached a U.S. patrol ship head-on at high speed, coming within 50 yards before altering course, after the American ship sounded 5 short blasts and launched a warning flare. These are not isolated events. They are a recurring feature of operating in the Strait of Hormuz, and every commanding officer who sails through it knows the pattern by heart, even when they hope they'll never need it. What makes tonight different is context. In recent months, tensions in the strait have escalated well beyond the routine harassment of years past. Iranian fastboats have fired on commercial shipping directly, container vessels struck by rocket-propelled grenades and machine gun fire, tankers seized and redirected into Iranian territorial waters under the justification of permit violations. The United States has responded with an increased naval presence, more warships, more patrols, more overlapping windows where American and Iranian vessels operate within sight of each other in one of the most congested and contested waterways on Earth. Insurance underwriters have begun quietly warning that continued attacks could make the strait effectively uninsurable for ordinary commercial traffic. Everyone operating here understands that the margin for a mistake has gotten thinner. Reyes's destroyer is part of that increased presence, one link in an escort chain moving a convoy of tankers through the strait, under the assumption that visible American naval power reduces the odds of exactly the kind of incident that is, right now, unfolding on her radar screen. Here's what should give any experienced watch officer pause, and what Reyes clocks almost immediately. This isn't one boat testing the waters. It's 13, and they're not approaching in a loose, disorganized cluster the way fishing traffic or confused civilian vessels sometimes do. They're spaced with intention, closing from multiple bearings, the kind of formation that suggests coordination rather than opportunism. At this range, still several nautical miles out, there's a reasonable case for investigate before you escalate. IRGCN boats shadow American ships in this strait constantly. Most encounters end exactly the way they're supposed to. A radio challenge, a visible response, boats peeling away once the point that Iran is watching, that Iran is present, has been made. Reyes has personally been through versions of this exact scenario without a single shot fired. But something about tonight's spacing bothers her operations specialist enough to flag it before anyone asks. The boats aren't holding a shadowing distance. Their closing rate, when the numbers come back off the radar plot, is far faster than a routine shadow run. Whatever tonight is, it isn't going to look like the quiet version. Reyes orders general quarters, not because she's certain this is an attack, because 13 boats closing this fast, this coordinated, gives her no time to find out the hard way if she waits. The range closes from 4 nautical miles to 2 in under 90 seconds. IRGCN fast attack craft routinely operate above 40 knots, faster than almost anything else on this stretch of water, fast enough that the distance between still theoretical and close enough to ram, fire, or worse, collapses in a way that conventional naval combat, built around missiles fired from tens of miles out, was never designed to handle at this range. Reyes's bridge team issues the standard escalation of warnings, bridge-to-bridge radio calls on the internationally recognized channel, first in English, repeated per protocol. No response. A searchlight, trained directly on the lead boat, the universally understood signal that says clearly, "We see you, and we are watching." The boats keep closing. At 1 nautical mile, Reyes authorizes the next step, the ship's horn, 5 short blasts, the same signal that worked in 2022, to turn away a single high-speed approach. It does something tonight, but not everything. 11 of the 13 boats begin to peel off, curving away in a maneuver that reads, to trained eyes, as the routine version of this encounter, finally resolving itself the way most of them do. 2 boats do not turn. They keep closing, now well inside 1,000 yards, still accelerating, and Reyes's fire control officer reports something that changes the entire calculation. One of the 2 boats is running lights out, and thermal imaging picks up what looks like a crew-served weapon mount uncovered on its bow. This is the moment where every training scenario Reyes has ever run collapses into a single decision point, made in seconds, with incomplete information, and consequences on both sides of the choice. Here's what makes this moment genuinely difficult rather than simply tense. The rules of engagement that govern this exact situation are built around demonstrated hostile intent or hostile act, not proximity, not speed, not an uncovered weapon mount alone. A boat that closes fast, refuses radio contact, and doesn't turn away isn't automatically a lawful target. 9 times out of 10 in this strait, over the last 2 decades, that exact profile has ended with the boat breaking off at the last possible moment, precisely because that unpredictability, that willingness to go right up to the line without crossing it, is itself the IRGCN's tactic. Getting an American commander to fire on a boat that was in fact about to turn away is arguably as much of a win for Tehran as any hostile act would be. Reyes has roughly 45 seconds before the lead boat, if it maintains course and speed, reaches point-blank range, close enough for small arms fire to be directly relevant to the safety of her own crew on deck. Her close-in weapons system, the automated last line of defense gun, mounted for exactly this kind of threat, has already acquired a track on both boats and is awaiting final authorization. She has options: continue warnings, maneuver to open distance, authorize a warning shot from the ship's deck gun into the water ahead of the lead boat, or wait for a clearer demonstration of hostile intent before authorizing anything with a higher probability of causing casualties. Every second she spends deciding is a second the boat continues closing. Reversal 1. Surely the ship's advanced defenses solve this cleanly. They don't, and the reason is uncomfortable rather than technical. A modern destroyer's weapons systems are extraordinarily effective against exactly the threats they were designed for: anti-ship missiles, aircraft, larger vessels at range. Against a small, fast, maneuverable boat at close range, crewed by people rather than guided by a seeker head, the calculus changes entirely. Every weapon Reyes could authorize carries a real risk of killing people aboard that boat who may, in the next 10 seconds, still turn away. And international law, US rules of engagement, and the plain moral weight of the decision all demand she exhaust every less lethal option first, even as the range keeps closing and her margin for error keeps shrinking. Reversal 2. Surely a warning shot resolves it. Reyes authorizes exactly that. A burst from the ship's deck gun, aimed into the water well ahead of the lead boat's bow. Unmistakable, impossible to interpret as anything but a final warning. It's the same category of response that worked in 2021, when warning shots from a Coast Guard cutter turned away 13 boats converging on an American submarine escort. Tonight, one boat peels away immediately, curving hard to starboard the instant the rounds hit water. The second boat does not. It keeps closing, 300 yards now, well inside the range where a rocket-propelled grenade, if that's what's mounted on its bow, becomes a genuine threat to Reyes's ship and crew. This is the reversal that should not be happening. The playbook that has worked, repeatedly, in incident after incident over the better part of a decade, is not working on this specific boat, tonight. Reversal 3. Surely this ends the way it always has, at the last possible second. At just under 200 yards, a distance that, at the boat's closing speed, translates to roughly 9 seconds before impact or contact, the boat's engine cuts. Not gradually, abruptly, the wake behind it collapsing as the outboard motors go silent. The boat's own momentum carries it forward another 50 yards before it settles, dead in the water, well short of Reyes's ship. It isn't a mechanical failure. Within moments, radio contact opens on the exact channel Reyes's bridge team had been calling on for the past 4 minutes. A terse acknowledgement, in accented English, that the vessel is standing down. No explanation for the silence during the approach. No explanation for why this boat, alone among the 13, pushed the encounter this close to a point of no return before stopping. This is the reversal within the reversal. The moment that looked for 9 seconds, like it was about to become the incident that finally crossed the line, this strait has been edging toward for years, resolves itself through a choice made entirely on the Iranian side. A choice Reyes had no way to predict, verify, or influence, and one that, had it gone 90 seconds differently, could have ended with return fire, casualties on both sides, and a genuinely different story being told about tonight. Reyes stands down general quarters roughly 20 minutes later, once every boat from the original formation of 13 has cleared to a safe distance, and the convoy's tankers have resumed their transit through the strait without further incident. No shots were fired at any vessel. No casualties, on either side. The official incident report will describe it, accurately, as an unsafe and unprofessional interaction. The same clinical language used to describe similar encounters going back years. A phrase that, from the outside, understates just how close the margin actually was tonight. The convoy completes its transit roughly 6 hours later, entering the Gulf of Oman and clearing the strait entirely. For the tankers under escort, tonight becomes a footnote. A delay. A tense radio call relayed secondhand, nothing more. For Reyes's crew, it becomes something else. 45 seconds, somewhere in the middle of that encounter, that several of them will describe afterward as the longest of their deployment. General quarters, weapons authorized and tracking, a boat closing without explanation, and no way to know, in real time, whether it would stop. This is what makes the Strait of Hormuz different from almost anywhere else American naval forces operate. There is no declared war here, no formal state of hostilities between the United States and Iran. And yet, on any given night, a destroyer's crew can find itself inside a decision window measured in single-digit seconds, weighing an ambiguous approach against rules of engagement built for exactly this kind of uncertainty, knowing that getting it wrong in either direction, firing too early or waiting too long, carries consequences that extend far beyond the water they're standing on. The pattern holds, this time. It is held, with only a handful of genuinely severe exceptions, across 2 decades of exactly this kind of encounter. Boats close fast, warnings escalate, and at some point, sometimes at the very last possible second, as it was tonight, the boat that doesn't turn away, turns away anyway. But every person who has stood a watch like Reyes's in this strait understands what the pattern holds, this time, actually means. It doesn't mean the pattern always will. 33 kilometers of water at the narrowest point, a fifth of the world's oil passing through it. And on any given night, the difference between a routine transit and an international incident can come down to 9 seconds, and a decision no training scenario can fully prepare you to make in real time. Tonight, the boat stopped. That's the verdict.